All right, guys, big night tonight on LOLz. We have a special guest who's going to be joining us in a little bit. You guys might know him as Yury Lifshits. He is the man behind SuperDAO, and Brian is drinking a Mark's Hard Lemonade as well. So, I mean, what two bigger events could we have than those two?
That was a secret between the two of us.
Something with your mic just changed from when we were backstage. Now you sound you sound like all distorted.
Here, let's try.
That sounds.
Oh, you know why? I don't know why.
You sound a little better now.
Let's see.
That's better.
That's better?
Yeah, you just said your levels are a little loud, so you're kind of popping a little bit, but I think we're in business now.
Okay, I'll turn the mic volume down a little bit. How about that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, you tell me if it goes haywire.
Okay. So it looks like our special guest is here right now, Brian.
Yeah, okay.
Let's bring him in. Yury, how are you doing?
Doing great. How are you guys?
Doing good. I've been terrified on how to pronounce your last name.
Yeah, it's Yury Lifshits.
Awesome. What origin is that?
It is a Jewish last name. The largest number of Lifshitses is in Israel, also a lot in Russia. The most famous Lifshitz in the world is actually designer Ralph Lauren. He's actually a Ralph Lifshitz.
Wow. Okay. There you go. And so, I mean, if DAOs become as big as I'm guessing you think they could become, do you think you could kind of take Lauren over as the top Lifshitz?
I'll let him be in the first spot.
Brian,
start a DAO to buy Ralph Lauren. Right. That's the angle.
That.
Why don't you, Brian? Why don't you introduce our guest, because he first came on your radar?
Yeah, he came on my radar. I was listening to the Anthony Pompliano podcast, the Pomp podcast, and Yury was on there, and we're interested. Yury, just so you know, you don't know a lot about us either. We've done this podcast for a while now, a couple of years, and mainly our audience is like gamblers, mainly like the daily fantasy sports sector, sports betting, a little bit of poker, and we're also into crypto and NFTs and stuff like that. So we kind of go off the rails sometimes and just talk about whatever we're into during that moment. We had a big few months there where we were really into NBA Top Shots. Pete hosts another show, Club Top Shot, which is all about NFTs, and he has a coder on that show too. Anyways, and so I heard yours, and I thought it would be fun to kind of dive into some DAO first, information on what it is, so people know what it is first off, and then maybe we could even possibly build something for our show and our Discord or something like that, if it's humanly possible. Just something fun that we're interested in, and the real reason, or that it interests me, is because we talk a lot about like legislation on the show, like sports gambling legislation specifically, and I kind of feel like DAO lobbying is an angle that people might go down, a route a lot of people might go down, and maybe even like some sort of like lobbying arms race could happen here, where it's kind of like these hyper specific DAO lobbying groups kind of trying to influence politics in their state or on the federal level or something like that. I could see something like that. And so like that was kind of my first thought. And then we went in our Discord and told them this idea, and then asked if anybody has any ideas on DAOs that they'd be interested in. Because, there's a ton of fun ones out there, like buying a baseball team or buying a golf course or something like that. And so we got some suggestions. I figured maybe we could brainstorm through that. And then Pete, you wanna chime in here? And I think we definitely need a little premiere on what a DAO is too.
Yeah, Yury, why don't you give us kind of the high level on your background, DAOs, and a little bit about SuperDAO, just to kind of give us a good foundation for this conversation.
Awesome. I'll try to be quick.
No, you're good.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Excited to be on the show. I'm Yury. I was originally born in Russia. As a kid, I was growing up as a mathematician, participating in math Olympiads, then did PhD in computer science. I was teaching grad courses on crypto before crypto was a crypto. So it was cryptography, not cryptocurrencies back then. So teaching things like Byzantine generals, fault tolerance, and zero knowledge proofs, things that are currently like a foundations for the crypto and blockchains. But back then, everyone thought that was just funny mathematical theorems with absolutely no applications, and including myself. So it was a big surprise to see how it all played out. I moved to the United States, was a scientist at Caltech, Yahoo, started 4 companies before. One of them was acquired for $80 million or more. But I don't even know, because I started that company under venture studio, and then they left, and then they sold it. So they kind of got most of the money, and I don't know even. The press said 80 million, 150 million. So it was a good exit, but not for me. Anyway, learned a lot there. Started one more company after that. That one didn't work that well, so we shut it down, open sourced it, and now started SuperDAO. SuperDAO is 4 months old. It's a new company. It's basically Shopify for DAOs. It's like the easiest way possible to start and grow your DAO. We're trying to make it possible for people who without technical background and without lawyers and smart contract developers to do it. Our mission is to help launch 1 million DAOs, and so a lot of work ahead of us. We got surprisingly positive reception and backing by investors. Incredible, I would say. So we raised $1 million in the first week of existence, when it was just me. No product, no customers, no team, very shaky market knowledge back then. And then 2 or 3 months later, it was a team of 20, still no product, still no customers, still figure things out. And then we raised 10 million and 160 million valuation, which is really solid seed round to even in the crypto times, and especially pre-product. So probably one of the largest seed rounds pre-product is Clubhouse did 10 and 100, and they had the product. And then so there is something there. So there is a special reason why investors are so bullish on the idea, why they think the DAO economy can be so big, and when specifically SuperDAO can be the right player to kind of move this forward. So yeah, maybe tell you about what we're actually building. We're building a couple things. So the first one is smart contracts. So essentially, basically helping you to put any organization on chain, kind of describe it on chain, what it is, how many members, are the members based on NFTs or tokens or both? Is there any voting system? Is there any shared assets like wallets and whatnot? And who can upgrade the contract? How things can be changed? Who has what kind of permissions and rights, and so on. So we the DAOs come to us, idea stage DAOs, and we listen to them. We ask them to fill a couple forms, talk to them, and then say, okay, we got it. So this is your smart contract. In the future, it will be fully no code, no human involved, but we're not there yet. And then that's kind of step one. And step two is providing them a nice kind of humanly usable interface. We call it member space or workspace, but it's basically a place where people can hang out. It has 4 key elements: member directory, seeing who is in the DAO; newsfeed, it's kind of one-to-many communication and member-only content, including votable updates, so including some lightweight governance. Number 3 is asset management, treasury dashboard, kind of seeing what are the things that you guys own together. And number 4 is compensation management and kind of task board. Is what kind of jobs are there for the DAO, who can do it, how you get paid. Is it requests for proposals? Is it invoices? Is it contests? Is it giveaways? You can use different forms of employment compensation, rewards, and incentives to kind of work with your contributors. So that's kind of what we do.
And maybe to just not to wind us back too much, but do you think, just for people who aren't familiar, you could kind of just define what a DAO is, and maybe kind of what some of the best use cases are, just for people who are, coming at this from a very, first time experience?
Oh, absolutely. So there are two definitions. So there are two camps that have very different definition, and so they at war right now with each other. So the first camp says a DAO is decentralized autonomous organization, and here decentralized means that there is no core, central, or like key team that is responsible for success of the whole thing. And so it's kind of a lot of people, but no one in particular is responsible to move things forward. And number two, autonomous, meaning that the software is in charge. So whatever software says, humans can't override it. It kind of runs on itself. If humans stop doing, things will continue going. Maybe they will not evolve as much, but they get to. And the original reason why you would structure as a DAO is because you really want your token to behave pretty much like equity and be traded. But you don't want to register it for some reason as a security. And so you want to pretend or like behave as gold or oil prices. And so you say, hey, no one controls oil. There is no company that produces oil or gold. So therefore it's decentralized. There's so many sources of it. And therefore there are prices, but it's not equity. And you don't need to register like natural resources as securities. And therefore, like if we behave like natural resources, then we can avoid. And then people realize, oh, it's actually like behaving in some way decentralized and in some way like with putting software instead of lawyers in charge has a lot of benefits. So why not we start doing more stuff like that? But the people who start using DAOs for benefits and not for the legal reasons, they realize they don't really need to be fully decentralized, at least not on day one. And they don't need to be like fully software over humans. It can be software plus humans. Some rules made by software, some rules made by humans. So the new definition, and this is a big shocker, a DAO is a company. That's it. So it's like it's an organization, no longer decentralized and autonomous, but it is using blockchain as jurisdiction. So it's kind of uses blockchain as a system of record where it records what it is, as opposed to like any national legal system. And the people from the first camp are really upset about the second camp because they felt, no, the DAO is our thing. Like you're like completely butchering the definition, and your DAOs are not DAOs. But still, in 2022, nearly all DAOs are not DAOs. So they're the second generation DAOs.
Yeah, that's a big. The whole Bitcoin maxi or just maxis in general is if it's not decentralized, it's crap, and it's kind of annoying.
Exactly. Yeah. So the history repeats itself with DAOs as much as cryptocurrencies. Yes.
What I have a feeling, similar to the criticisms that you hear for crypto, for NFTs, they say, why does this need to be its own coin? Why does this need to be an NFT? I assume people are going to have that same thing. Why does a company need to be a DAO? What are kind of, what makes it so advantageous? Yeah.
Yeah, there are three advantages. The first, you go to investor and say, hey, I have a company, please give me investment. And they say, sure, your company is valued at $10 million. You say, oh, I forgot to mention, it is a DAO. I say, oh, fine, then it's $40 million. And so basically valuation is 4, 5, 7, 10 times higher for exact same company. If you say that you will be eventually a token traded company, not the equity traded company, so your life dream is to be traded on Coinbase, not NASDAQ, you just get high valuation, even if it's the same project. And the reason why investors behave that way, because they see that the late stage projects are traded very highly on crypto exchanges relative to their business progress. So they behaving very rationally given the early stage valuations higher. Why so? Because the late stage projects, they trade their own stock. So they actively use their own kind of cash balance, either revenue or raised from investors, to engage market makers and trade and maintain, not to say artificially high price, but they play in their own token, and therefore they can move it in a very high, especially when circulation is low and you have high leverage of your own capital and whatnot. And most of your investors are locked in, so they're not really trading right now. So it's very rational. Basically, you're raising more money, better terms. That's one reason. The second reason is you can grow faster. And you can grow in the areas where you feel there is already monopolies. So you go to YouTube or Netflix or something, you feel like, how you can do another YouTube? No way. How you can do another Spotify? No way. But if you say, well, it's a Spotify, but it's a Spotify DAO, a podcast DAO, and like, oh yeah, then you can definitely grow. You just give everyone a bunch of coins, everyone got excited, and start putting podcasts in the network with 0 followers, and you give a bunch of tokens to followers, and then they will join and start listening because they feel like they're earning tokens by just listening on your network as opposed to Spotify. And maybe, you overcome the cold start problem and you start a new network. So that's kind of overcoming cold start problem, building network effects, building communities before you have product and utility, incentivizing early participants.
What are some of the most successful or kind of gold standards for DAOs right now? Because it's still, I assume, for a lot of people might seem like this abstract thing. It sounds great on paper, but who's actually executing this?
Well, on the first generation, that would be Ethereum, the Ethereum itself. Like, you can think of that as a DAO. They were one of the first people to, including Vitalik Buterin, to think about what DAO is. And it is decentralized. There is no single big company that, drives Ethereum forward, and there is a token and it's traded everywhere. So it is very much a poster child of the DAO first generation, and more successful, the highest capitalization and so on. Probably, top 100 company in the world, if not top 20. I need to double check. If we talk about second generation, those kind of not fully DAOs or flexible DAOs, of modern DAOs, well, there are the usual suspects like Friends with Benefits or Flamingo DAO or whatever. But Constitution DAO or Kraus House, or the one that I think is the best, TBD. I don't think we actually have the best DAO of the second generation yet. So I would say,
what do you think about those ones, like the ones that tried to buy the soccer team, like the third tier?
Yeah. We call them either property DAOs or single purpose acquisition DAOs. I don't know. We're still figuring out the term for that. Or acquisition DAOs, just in general. I like them. I think it's a viable approach. And again, they bring fresh approach to previously monopolized industries. Like NBA industry is monopolized, like soccer clubs or golf industry or fast food chains. There was recent Fry's DAO thing. So they all were monopolized. It was very hard to enter, late enter And so with the DAO approach, you can kind of break into the previously closed markets. And the third advantage, I need to complete the previous answer, is employment. So we have advantage on fundraising, we have advantage on growth, and then we have advantage on employment. So with traditional organization, try to employ 1,000 people in 1 week in 100 countries. Impossible. So much bureaucracy, so much forms, so much tax obligation, reporting, legal requirements. Impossible. And if you want part-time, based on individual granular contributions, that is really tokenized effort through contests and retroactive funding and community awarded compensation and streamed payments by a second, pay for each tweet. I don't know. Basically, very modern, flexible, fluid way of compensated labor. Crypto is the only way. And so essentially, I would say if your company has a scalable, repeatable contributor loop, so when a lot of people can do a very simple task to move your organization forward, then the DAO employment is the way to go. So let's say you do an investment DAO and you need 1,000 people reviewing 10,000 new NFTs per day and finding the new gems. Great. So it's a scouting, curation kind of operations. Everyone has exactly the same task. Go check out a few NFTs, see what you like, why, send reports, vote for others, NFTs, help us discover the best new things. Same with investments, same with social media, same with content, with videos, music, building together cities in the metaverse, like VR architecture, things like that. So those are great examples where it's scalable, repeatable, parallelized effort and labor, and especially digital, cross-country, cross-nations. That's where basically DAO employment shines.
I feel like a lot of people too, when they hear DAOs or even kind of understand what it are, they feel like it's this kumbaya circle where how are we going to get everyone to agree from the same on the same ideas, how to use our money, how to make decisions.
Yeah.
What are the mechanisms that, allow this to actually happen when people have so many differing views?
Yeah, dictatorship. So nearly all DAOs these days start centralized. So they don't actually fully decentralize. So they say, hey, the full operating control is with the core team. There is individual decisions such as, hey, let's vote on the budget, or let's vote on investment deals, or let's vote on like elected officials within the DAO, or let's vote on whether we do this investment or not. So you do very specific decisions to community, or like let's pick one of 3 options for the shirt design for our recently acquired sports team. That's fine. Like you can't lose a business by choosing one of the 3 shirts, and you choose the most popular one. So probably a good choice. Yeah, but you don't let them choose the head coach, or like you be very careful before you allow your community to choose the head coach. So they might nominate, they might help vote top 10 or something like this, but another one is like you let the community vote for everything and then just have the veto power. So that means
that's kind of how that's when I first heard of DAOs, that was definitely something that popped in my head. When I first heard of DAOs, I imagine this is probably pretty common in the industry, but the line between this fully autonomous organization and the centralized organization, where you're gonna have to hire people, you're gonna have to get people involved, that line's got to be all over the map, because like it's really hard. So in our world, people have been talking about a fully decentralized crypto sportsbook solution. So no one owns it, right? It just completely runs on code. Everyone uses it. There's no, there's very small VIG. There's no governments involved. Anyone can use it. But like, it's really hard to run a business. I don't know how you could code that out and be dynamic for the future, right? So those things started popping in my head, and it's like, well, then how? Okay, now we're gonna have to hire people. How's that gonna work? Well, we have the voting structure, so that makes some sense. You could vote for somebody in, but it's like, okay, well, then how do we get the money to him to pay the contractor? What sort of recourse do we have if this guy rugs us? These are all questions that pop up in my head. Maybe we can give like a specific example, like we were talking about earlier, and walk through it. I don't know if you guys want to start doing that now, but it's an idea.
Not sure. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. What did you have a comment on Brian's thought there?
No, I actually didn't got the question fully. So do we need to like do a case study of one of the existing DAOs? So what was the question?
Well, it was really just more of a comment on the line between how do we deal with like real world application of hiring people to run our DAO, like being involved in our DAO. Because like in my head, most of the things I think are fun, like even buying a sports team, you can't just write that. Like in my mind, I don't see how you can write the code from start to finish to you owning a team. Like I just don't see how that you're going to need some intermediary.
Yes. Off-chain representation. Yes. So basically nearly all new DAOs start centralized first. There is a core team, there is an operating entity, and it produces like it leads fundraising, it builds the community, and then it figures out which part of the business of operations can actually benefit from decentralized setup. And it's typically either bringing capital together or bringing this contributor loop together, like a lot of scouts, a lot of content contributors, a lot of ambassadors or influencers working together. So if there is anything repeatable, scalable, parallelizable, that part is living in kind of decentralized arm. It's a little bit like government, like national government. So you have legislative branch that is more representative and community oriented, like the parliament, the Congress. And then you have executive branch, which is more like presidents and ministers and departments. And those are career professionals, and they might even go from administration to administration and still be in the same place. So in America, there is a lot of media about this, like House of Cards and whatnot. But there is even probably a better example in Britain, UK, when they have this series called Yes Minister and then Yes Prime Minister, about like very likable but highly incompetent minister who was elected. And then there is his subordinate who is a career administrator who is in civil service, and he's super competent about how not to do anything right, like how to like stall any progress and like keep things as they are. And there's like a lot of fun dynamic. And I think, not to say that that's how DAOs will operate, but by the way, I encourage you at least Google it on YouTube, like searching on YouTube, like few clips. It is probably the best show about politics ever.
Okay.
Everyone who's seen it shares that opinion.
So what are with SuperDAO and trying to be the Shopify for DAOs, what do you have any big success stories that have gone through SuperDAO?
No, we're just starting. So the private beta starts next week. Like we already accepted a bunch of companies to that organization there, but they're going live starting next week. So we expect maybe about 20 DAOs to go live on SuperDAO this quarter in the next 6 weeks, so 5 weeks, and then about 1,000 in the quarter two. So we received over 2,000 applications already. So there is the demand is real, and this before any real marketing. Like I don't know if this podcast appearance counts as marketing, but like hopefully we'll receive more hopefully we'll receive some. So if you guys listening and want to apply for SuperDAO private beta and just try it out, so go to superdao.co and just hit early access and just fill your email, and we'll follow up.
Awesome. Someone in the chat, Drico here, asking any concern that the SEC might call DAOs unregistered securities.
So the answer to this is there is a safe playbook and there is a dangerous playbook, and we advise all our customers to go safe playbook. But if someone wants to do like risky playbook, it's their choice. We are just offer provider like, I don't know, Gmail. Like you can use Gmail to start unregistered securities. You can use SuperDAO to start unregistered securities. So the safe path is you sell NFTs for utility only, and then you sell tokens to private accredited investors, and you make the tokens initially untradeable, kind of locked against trading. And then later, much later, when you have a fully blown build-up product, you can make your token to be a form of payment for your services. It becomes more of like a utility token. You can make it a governance over something real, and then it becomes much more like utility. Then you can decide whether you want also to finally have a sufficient level of decentralization. And if you hit those 2 points, sufficient level of decentralization and the true utility kind of behind your token, then you can unlock against, unlock your token, make it tradable, either on Coinbase, FTX, Binance, whatever. If you feel like you achieved the enough utility value, but still kind of question mark on decentralization, then you probably can list outside of United States and kind of still be fine.
So you said something there. Is it so like the way I'm picturing like NFTs and crypto is like once it's on the chain, it's minted, that's it. That's not changing. So if you started a DAO where you start small and like down the line we want to eventually trade, can we change all that code, the original DAO code?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it all depends on your smart contract. So you can write a smart contract where things are completely unchangeable, everything's set in stone, the organizers can't upgrade the contract. And that was kind of the first generation of smart contracts for both tokens and NFTs. That was great for people who bought them, but it was terrible for the creators because what if you got a new series? What if you improved your artwork? What if you want to add a tier? What if you want to change the lockup schedule? What if you figure out something better? So the opposing plan is the creator control. So if you have a gradable contract, then creator can, okay, now we add in wallet. Now we add in voting system. Now we add some modifications to the voting system. Now we like update the artwork or whatever. So they can improve and evolve the organization, but there is less security for the members, the ones who bought token NFT, because they bought something that's on chain. Everyone can see it. It's interoperable with all the other tools, but the creators still have a control. So they can still upgrade it, or they can print more NFTs or things like that. So look, like if Andreessen Horowitz is buying a share in a startup with, a million shares, and the founder is still in control, they can print 100 million shares. They can dilute Andreessen Horowitz. They don't have full anti-dilution control, especially if it's a safe, the simple agreement for future equity. There is no like direct anti-dilution controls there, and as far as I remember. You can put like a huge option pool. You might be direct anti-dilution, but if you like put a huge option pool and just employ every family member with the option pool, you can still dilute the existing shareholders. The same with NFTs.
Yeah, we're not maxis here, so we're fine with a little centralization. But like it, why on the blockchain then? Because then it just sounds to me like it's just code.
Well,
that you could just put public on GitHub.
Yeah, one thing is interoperability. The second one is at some point when you feel like you did a good job, you can freeze it. So you can say, okay, we like stop, like it's no longer upgradable. We like revoke the right from ourselves to upgrade it. And now it's like fully fixed. So it's there's an evolution period of time, or you can say it's evolving until this point, and after this point, or any future amendment only with a community vote. So only community needs to vote for any future upgrades. So basically, the contract can't be upgraded unless there are signatures of like over half of the members, so over half of the executive committee to do any future upgrades.
Gotcha. So I know we only have you for a couple more minutes, but I don't know if we'll be able to get into a full-on, brainstorm for some of our ideas. But what would you say for people who are getting their ducks in a row? Obviously, they need to check out SuperDAO, but like, what are the main few things you need to get in order before you think about launching a DAO?
Well, you can start right away. There is no prerequisites. So the good first questions to ask yourself is, who is my first 10 members? Why am I doing that? What's the purpose? What kind of good of the world we want to bring? What's a good name? Like how would we name the DAO? That's a huge, important decision. And then what is our social capital strategy? Do we have a famous person among top 10? Anyone with a newsletter? Anyone with YouTube? Anyone with podcast? Anyone with Twitter? Anyone who can broadcast that's a cool idea and bring other people who have like high standing in social media. So you want as many people who might be not even hands-on, but might lend either credibility or distribution in some way. So getting social distribution, because essentially there are people who would help you distribute the signal, and then there are people who may be less well-known on social media, but who will be more hands-on contributors and will put time. Basically, there are people who put their follower capital, and there are people who would put their time capital. And so you need high follower people first. Another one is just, hey, start writing a manifesto, which is like 1-2 pages manifesto, roadmap, or white paper, whatever you call it. I call it Notion doc. But basically, start writing a doc describing what it is, how is it called, what you all gonna deliver together. The good news is that you can just Google 100 DAOs and see their roadmap and just copy them and like start changing names and whatnot. One fun thing that happened is because we did so kind of relatively well on fundraising, pre-seed and seed, I just see and I share privately. We didn't have a pitch deck, by the way, so we just have Notion docs. And so I shared those Notion docs privately to a bunch of pre-seed and seed stage startups. I see so many startups these days that's just using the template from SuperDAO. It's so fun to see.
What if we have a full, we have all those questions answered? So like
awesome.
We have hypothetically, I'm saying here.
Yeah.
We want to start like a sports betting. This is all hypothetical. Sports betting lobbying group. So we know that people are interested in it. There's incentive for them because they're sports bettors. They want protections from this kind of monopolistic system that's out there.
Yep.
We know influencers.
Yep.
We have active Discord.
Yep.
What would we do? What do we do now? So we got all that stuff. What's next?
This is great. So I'm thinking in
no,
the
go
air.
Ahead.
So I would call this is a special interest group. So you're building a very powerful special interest group. I think there are two ways that can threaten the politicians to actually take any action, as opposed to like saying nice words and do nothing. One is capital, and another is number of voters. So you either raise a bunch of money and start giving them to candidate A versus candidate B, depending who takes the better position, or you have like 1 million people who is actually willing to show up on a poll and for whom this is the deciding issue. So they're not looking who is the best best candidate on abortion rights or housing or economy or taxes. They say who is the most pro betting candidate. So you need to build a huge list of people who declare that they would rather vote for pro betting or like for modern betting or for flexible betting candidate, and then again like person who is conservative on betting, regardless of every other political stance, for whom this is the number one issue. And so if you build a huge number of those people, and then you show that those people are real, so they're not just a signature on the internet. Maybe you do an event in the streets, maybe you take over one mid-sized American city for a day or something, I don't know. So you show that you are real, and that's because the politicians, they're thinking, okay, I need to take 3 public stances, and I want to take 3 well-organized, consistent groups. I will say I'm pro-guns, I'm against abortion, I'm pro-betting, I'm blah, blah. So they're taking a few stands trying to say, okay, I got this group, I got that group, I got that group, got that group, and together I kind of get enough groups to get me over half. And so if I just be friendly with these very self-organized, monochrome kind of single-issue groups, then I'm good. So you basically, the purpose, I'm talking more political strategy right now, not the DAO strategy. So the purpose is high membership, I would say. So the higher the membership of the group you have, the more formidable you are. I would say the high membership size is even probably more important than, at the end of the day, than capital. Because capital, and another thing is that there are 2 sources of capital. There is kind of retail capital, so the average member who donates, I don't know, $5, $100 per month, whatever, and then there is like institutional / high net worth individual capital, the people. And so the people with high capital or family offices or think tanks or whatnot, they or corporate interests, they were like, hey, if there is organized movement, if there is enough kind of grassroots support, we chime in. So we come in. They come second almost always. So basically, if you show 100,000 people, 1 million like regular members, then you start getting, okay, now maybe some of the beginner. Now you have Peter Thiel. Now you have Elon Musk or whatever. But they will join the movement when the movement is popular, because same thing is like, yeah, everyone wants to join something that's popular. So essentially, DAO mechanics are amazing to catalyze 100,000 people who strongly believe about something. So the way you do it is with tiered NFT collection, and we can help because that's exactly what we do. So essentially, you figure out 10 or 100 most kind of high social capital people who are in your immediate or second degree circles, whom you can sell personally in DMs, in the call, in WhatsApp group, in iMessage, whatever. Say, hey, Johnny, this is the idea. This is one pager on Notion. This is going to be cool. It's going to be turn everything out. And I also have a lot of fun factor. So it's a party. We're going to have a good time, even if we not move the needle right away. It's going to be just so much fun. And so it's just spending time together with people who believe the same things. And so can you be with us? And there are 2 requirements. You need to tell us your Ethereum address, and be willing to accept our most epic, legendary, limited edition NFT for free, and maybe do 1 retweet, and also allow us to tell that you're in the club, so that we can publicly say that you actually have that NFT. So let's say you have 100 of those people. Then you go to the next 1,000 and say, hey, those 100 already in the club. They got the NFT. This movement is growing. Do you still want to get a free NFT, maybe second tier or whatever? Maybe you need to do a little bit of organizing work. Maybe you do 1 tweet. It's hey, we receive an application. It's still free NFTs, but you need to apply. It's a combination of high social standing or high time effort. Please apply to our movement. So let's say another 1,000 people apply. Now you do another tweet, and now you have the 100 people plus 1,000 people. They all can retweet, so you can now go to trending tweets. And you say, hey, you need to retweet. It's a 3rd tier NFTs. You still get it free, but you need to retweet, and maybe 10,000 retweets. Now you start getting steam, and by that time you have also decentralized contributors. Maybe they do memes or designs or T-shirts, or there you start getting cultural capital around this. So internal memes and titles within the system. And Discord is blowing up and things like that. And then you say, hey, this is great. So we now need a core team. We now need staffers. So let's do a little bit like a crowd raise. Let's do more NFTs. Let's do tier 4, and let's have them 0.1 ETH for regular people and I don't know, 1 ETH for like people who don't have too much money, and so they buy it, and so now you have like a little bit more, and you have different tiers, and then again there are events for just tiered people, and there is private content, and there are cool insights, and I don't know, basically people hanging out together. And I say, okay, we are now 10,000, 100,000 people, and so. And again, we might have put one tweet per week is to be the most trending tweet out there on our topic. And now it's become visible. Now we can start a podcast and like bring the politicians on our calls and grill them on the legislation and why they should be more friendly, and educate them on the issues, and tell them what they should. And then they will come because, hey, they want to address a constituents group of 100,000 people who are like a voting bloc now. So and then you introduce community treasury. So some of the NFT proceeds go to community treasury. Some of that goes to like operating team for like off chain kind of stuff. And then some, maybe you do at some point a private raise. So private raise, you start bringing, like, maybe you will introduce a corporate tier. I don't know if you wanted to be completely grassroots or grassroots plus corporate. And say, hey, the corporates can also contribute money. So it's become a SPAC, or like, okay, now we're launching a SPAC. Now we're launching something else. And then you can say, now maybe you start accept the politicians into, card carrying members. So the NFT carrying members. So essentially you can say now you got the first senator with an NFT in your thing. Now you have 3 senators, like it's growing, and you show that basically it can be a special interest group organized through NFTs and DAO structure that has its own capital, and then have its own leadership and hierarchy, and or decentralized kind of team structure and chapters and whatnot. And it can become template for other lobbying movements as well.
That is quite the campaign. I was not expecting.
Well, at the start, it's just airdrop free 100 NFTs. We can do that. So we basically have
my idea was we just hire some lobbyists.
Yeah. So again, you can just sell 1,000 NFTs for 0.2 ETH and hire lobbyists. It will be probably less fun, I would say. So yeah,
so you sell NFTs to raise the money.
Yeah.
It's not like they just donate to some fund.
Yeah. The NFTs are better because that feels like you retain some governance rights, and you can decide which lobbyists and how much, and you have a member area where you can see the report from lobbyists, and maybe there is a Zoom link where you discuss how it went out, and maybe also as an NFT carrier you can actually. So for example, I actually participated in some lobbying in California for housing efforts and like pro housing legislation, and because I was like, even a tiny like $5 a month, to be honest, contributor, like I was invited, but I was like, I don't know, have some other reputation points, I guess. So I was invited on a trip to Sacramento, the state capital of California, and went to like 10 rooms in a row with assembly members, and with over 10 or 20 of us. And I was so basically going on a lobbying trip to like state capital and meet a bunch of like legislators in the same day and whatnot. But we had the professional lobbyist with our group who actually scheduled all these meetings in advance in a single day. And it was pretty fun. And we like educated a bunch of people, and they educated us.
Well, we really appreciate you swinging by. I feel like we have plenty now to brainstorm, and maybe once if we get an idea up on its legs, we'll circle back with you and get some more advice.
Sounds good. It was great to be on the air.
Thanks for coming on.
You guys can all follow Yury on Twitter at Yury Lifshits, and I'll put that in it's down in the description. And also you can follow SuperDAO. You also have a link on your website to the DAO playbook, which I just linked in the chat, which has kind of a lot of the high level outline. So thank you again, Yury, and we'll hopefully talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Guy. It was really awesome to be here.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Have a good one. Appreciate it.
Well, that was good. I think I was surprised by how pragmatic he was. Like, I feel like sometimes when I hear people talk about DAOs, it feels very kumbaya to me, like just more philosophical. Like, wouldn't it be great if we could all just form a group and he was just like, incentivize people in the right way, give them NFTs because then they want, like, he just was very blunt with kind of the mechanics and how the incentives work on this stuff.
And the big issue, which is the decentralization, right? that in the crypto community anyways. And he's just like, hey, lots of things aren't decentralized, which is, I mean, I'm pretty sure we've been saying that for 2 years now. Lots of stuff isn't decentralized. That makes me, and the other thing he said is where it's not locked in stone. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, I know, which I feel like there's pros and cons to that. I mean, and he mentioned Ethereum, and Ethereum famously, why a lot of Bitcoin people hate it is because they have the whole Ethereum Classic thing where they paused it and forked it because of the stolen stuff. And obviously that can't happen if Ethereum is fully decentralized. Like we're living with Ethereum Classic right now and all of those stolen coins or whatever. So it is interesting how that being able to intervene at the start can actually be, you know, very important for the longevity of a DAO.
Do you know of any NFTs right now that are like that are totally centralized and they could change it on a whim?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, even just kind of with the code on the way things point back to the where they hosted on the IPFS site, where, you know, the images can be changed and stuff like that. I think a lot of NFTs aren't fully decentralized, and that's also why people are always, you know, talk about things being on chain, because then
I'm saying completely centralized, like
completely
they could change
centralized?
anything. Yeah.
That's
I'd be
a good
interested
question.
to know if any are just completely centralized.
I would guess on some of the layer 2
I bet some
solutions.
of them are.
Yeah.
You know, the way he did it, I kind of thought it was more you open a wallet and like through the code, this wallet is operated from the code bylaws, the DAO code bylaws. But with the NFT, because the NFT idea, like it's like I mean, how many people are going to be giving us, you know, not us, but if somebody started a lobbying thing, obviously this is all hypothetical. Like you want to give them like $50, $100, whatever. It's like, yeah, but then you got to mint your NFT to contribute. And it's like, that is a little pricey for a fundraising operation. And then I didn't ask him about like Solana or like one of the other ones does it matter? Does he care? That'd be an interesting question, because if you can go on the cheaper ones, then NBA Top Shot.
Well, I do think like his example of those two things of in the one you had talked about, like it's just going to take a lobbyist and a shit ton of money, or he kind of outlined the other route, which is you build up such a groundswell and such a big community because it's cool, because it's fun, because you have influencers. I was just watching, I don't know if you saw it or heard about it, the Nepali mountaineer who climbed those 14 mountains. And there's this documentary on it, but his last mountain, the Chinese government had closed the mountain down for the season. And he's like, this is part of my whole thing. It was project, you know, that he had been, you know, dedicating all of his life to completing. And he put on his Instagram account, he's like, hey, will you guys write letters to this email address at the Chinese government? And like thousands and thousands and thousands of people did it. And Chinese government finally said, fine, we'll open it up just for you. And like, that's kind of to his point, right? Where it's like, you either get a ton of money where you're lobbying these guys, or you weaponize so many people behind a singular cause that they can't ignore you.
I like it. That's an optimistic, and I think that's a little optimistic. In our that specific scenario that I kind of want to address, I think it's too niche to have to get that popular. But hey, if somebody could pull that off and change something that's positive, that'd be interesting to watch. I don't think it would cost that much. Like if we just wanted to do Boston, or let's say some small state, all you need to raise is $100,000, $150,000. In those states, like their campaigns are probably like 15,000 for the whole year. You know, like you could probably do quite a bit of damage.
I do think it is kind of marrying a few different things where one, it's like you said, it's just, hey, we're just going to raise money to go to this lobbyist group. But if you can actually make it almost more participatory, where it is almost like a Patreon, like you're getting access to see how the sausage gets made for all of this, and you get to vote and have influence on it. Because that's ultimately what you're trying to do. It's like, this isn't the quote unquote most fun thing. It's not as fun as, you know, digital, JPEGs or whatever. But I do think if you could find a way to triangulate making it fun and interesting for people to be a part of the process, that could be interesting.
I mean, that's kind of my idea. So it's all voting. So I don't know how it's done through the DAO. Maybe, I guess that's the second part you're talking about with the interface. So you have to build some sort of interface in it to work with the DAO code. So you vote on whether you want to pick Vermont or Massachusetts or what state, and then you vote on how many lobbyists you should have, and then you vote on which lobbyists, and then you vote on who should be the face of the movement and call the lobbyists and send them the check or something like that. Like, that's kind of how I saw it, is everyone's involved and the money doesn't get released unless whatever 51%, or let's say the vast majority, 66%, a super majority, vote on it. So like everyone's still involved, not like a charity where you just give them $50, then you close the window and you never think of it again. Right. You're like in there voting and like, okay, this lobbyist seems like a piece of garbage. Let's not give him 10 grand. Let's go with this guy. And just everyone votes on it and you talk about it in Discord or like a podcast or something like that too.
Yeah.
That's how I saw it. I was totally involved. Everyone's completely involved. Or if you don't want to be involved at all, you just want to give $50 because you think it's bullshit that people are getting limited, or you just think that it should be legal in these states and you want to support that cause and you don't want to deal with it. That's fine too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm excited too. I don't think we've announced this. Are we able to say who our guest is next week? Is that booked? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're going to have Rufus Peabody on, and I assume a lot of these ideas and things we're talking about are things he's thought about and has even probably tried to behind the scenes make happen. So I think talking to Rufus will be like a good logical extension of this conversation of like, how could you actually put this on its feet?
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, I'd be surprised if he hasn't thought a ton about it though. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, I should say rather. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think a lot of people are thinking about these DAOs in the lobbying realm. I really think if you can incentivize it properly, I think it could be like this sort of like arms race for like niche lobbying. And so I get to get involved in this and I can make money. And I'm not saying like our idea is for people to make money. It's purely just like a cause that you either are or behind or not behind. And like, do you want to throw $50 or whatever to help these people in these states that don't have sports betting, or to push back on limiting or whatever the hell it would end up looking like. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, no, I think the thing that resonated too is like, if you did have one proof of concept where something like this worked, it would really get people's attention. Cause just my guess and kind of what I was asking him too is like, I think people are still very skeptical about this. Like, on paper, DAOs sound great, but then in actuality, and even asking him like, what are the best use cases for one? Like, we don't have one yet. Right. And I think that is what makes it scary and unknown for people.
I don't blame them. Don't blame them at all. Like, I think it's cool. I think it's cool, and I would be a hypocrite if I didn't like this type of stuff, because this is why I got into Bitcoin in the first place. Is your head starts spinning on like, oh my God, we don't need Visa and MasterCard. We don't need banks. We don't need, what else can we do with this? And then you hear about smart contracts. You're like, oh my God, like you could start your own business and everyone gets paid out through this contract and there's no arguing and you all work together and stuff, and just go on and on. Like, well, now we finally have some shit going. Like, they haven't succeeded yet, but they almost bought a soccer team. They almost bought the Constitution. They almost bought, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, finally real things are happening. It's cool. And there's going to be some disasters. There's going to be some disasters for sure. But the fact that it's not like locked onto the blockchain, like, I'm sure that's going to scare a lot of people. The maxis will lose their shit and just point at that for eternity, no matter how successful DAOs end up being. They'll just point at that. It's not on the chain. It's not on the chain. But like he said, you can put certain things on there and then lock in the rest later. And so, like, if you want to live in a world of complete decentralization, first of all, you can't. You'll have to move to your own private island. But, like, then you're probably not going to dig the initial DAOs. But then as more as this code gets written and everything and examples get made, like his Spotify for, his SuperDAO site, the Spotify for DAOs, will have more and more of this useful code that people can build on, like video game graphics getting better and better over the years, you know? So like the more it gets done, the more you're going to figure it all out.
Yeah. Let's see. GM says, aren't you thinking backwards? Why not make a gambling DAO? The decentralized org could be made to be legislation proof. I mean, those are the ideas that we're kind of spitballing.
Yeah. I mean, that's, first of all, I'm not thinking backwards, like decentralized sportsbook. I mentioned it on the on the show,
but that's far more ambitious than
right.
I'm
up for it.
Yeah,
sign me up. Where is it? I'd love to see it. Like, I think like I said, this code is in its initial stages. Maybe 10 years from now, when there's tons of autonomous code that people can just steal and then make a sports book somehow with a little bit additional autonomous sports book. Sure, but if it's going to be centralized, then first of all, you're probably going to get in trouble if it's not completely decentralized, because there'll be someone there to arrest. But like, people have talked about it. Decentralized poker. Like, remember Seals with Clubs?
Yeah.
They tried to get away with just using Bitcoin because it's not dollars. And didn't Micon either got, I don't think he went to jail, but he definitely had to pay the government, I believe. Like,
yeah,
they went after him.
Well, this one was literally one of the first kind of non-Bitcoin coins that I thought had utility, and was Augur. Do you remember hearing about Augur back in the day?
I think I had some.
Yeah. And it's it's still up. I just went to their website. Augur, your global no limit betting platform, a decentralized sportsbook. The problem was, from what I heard, was people would set markets on various things, but there was just like no liquidity. They just didn't have enough users to actually pull it off. But that was theoretically it, that you could make a bet on anything in the world you want and post and have someone take the opposite side and allow a smart contract to kind of hold that money for the duration.
And DraftKings and FanDuel aren't as big as they are just because sport DFS is so fun, although it is. They put a ton of money into marketing.
Yeah.
And getting involved, and then a ton of money into like trying to get themselves legalized in these states, and a ton of effort put in by like a huge staff that's incentivized from, bonuses and pensions and shares in the company and stuff like that. It's a massive undertaking that if someone can pull it off, if Augur takes off, great, I'm on board. But like, I don't see a lot of these, like even this simple idea of just hiring a couple lobbyists in Massachusetts. Like, okay, we're going to have to vote on it. We're going to get people on it. And then we're going to have to figure out who's going to be in charge to get the money to the lobbyists. How's that going to work? Are they going to rip us off? Like, that's a lot of work just in itself. And it's just like a simple, tiny little idea. You're just trying to cut someone 10 grand, So
yeah.
Like, hey, if you can make sportsbook, if you make a poker site, I'm down.
Yeah. I do think, like he said, in the short term, and this is kind of merging what you've talked about in the past, would be getting enough people rallying behind this issue, and then find a politician who would want to make this one of his 3 tentpole kind of platforms that he were to run on.
Yeah.
But
it's hard. I think in our, I could be wrong, but like in my experience, I would almost kind of like, you might even want to just keep this quiet.
Yeah.
Just raise enough money to get some, like maybe some ads in the newspaper, get them on your side, get some lobbyists just working behind the scenes when no one's paying attention. Maybe some hit pieces on Jason Robbins, Jesus. I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's how we end this show. Please don't clip that. But yeah, that was interesting talking to Yury. Excited to continue this next week with Rufus, and I believe I tentatively even have a guest lined up for 2 weeks from now. So Brian, we're really we're getting our shit together.
Yeah, this is a real professional outlet.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I got the links down below if you guys want to check out more of Yury's stuff. If you guys have any ideas or stuff, I did create a thread in the LOLz channel in the Deposit Kingdom Discord. We were kind of just spitballing LOLz DAO. So if you guys feel inspired from tonight's conversation, you can hop in there as well.
We can also just do something small and fun.
Yeah.
You know, like who knows? Just to do one. You know, like we had some ideas in there, like we could buy Osmo.com. We'll fundraise. Try to buy Osmo.
That would be good. No, I was saying too, because the one I had put in there because one of them is happening now, the FSGA awards. Everyone always complains about the awards that it's just whoever, it's pay to play. It's whoever, whatever they like, they get it and stuff. So I feel like a decentralized DFS awards or fantasy awards kind of community could be a fun one where, the actual Doug Polk has talked about it with poker too, how it's all just a bullshit, popularity contest.
Yeah, like a Hall of Fame.
There you go, DFS.
Right? So, like, yeah, Clemens and Bonds would be in the Hall of Fame if it was decentralized.
True. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea.
All right. I got to head over to Ship Chasing. Like I said, we're going to be back next week with Rufus Peabody. If you guys have questions for him too, toss them in the Discord. I can also create a thread for that. And that way we can just have some additional content. If you guys aren't familiar for some reason with him, widely considered one of the best sports bettors in the world. He just launched a new company. You guys probably saw Peter Jennings joining them on their board, Unabated Sports. Also has a great podcast, Bet the Process podcast, which is a good sports betting listen. So yeah, if you have any questions for Rufus, let us know. Brian, any other plugs on your end?
I got PGA ownership up for tomorrow. If anyone's playing PGA, wants some free ownership, brick75.com. Also have an app on there, sports betting app. And I have Mozilla. I have it working for Mozilla too, although I haven't posted that yet. If anyone DMs me, I can give them that file too.
Sweet. There you have it. The audio will be up in a little bit for you guys listening on podcast form. For Brian, thanks again to Yury for joining us. I'm Pete. We'll see you guys next week with Rufus.